Welcome to First Responder Friday. My name's Conrad Weaver. I'm your host for the program today, and I'm the film producer and director for PTSD 911 documentary as well as the host for this show. And I'm so glad you decided to join us today, whether you're watching from Facebook or YouTube or even on Twitter, on Periscope. Thank you for joining us. And if you would like to let us know where you're watching from, that would be awesome. Just put it in the comments and it'll show up on my screen and we can see where everybody's coming from. And also if you are a first responder, let us know what type of agency you work for, whether it's law enforcement or fire, EMS, dispatch, that kind of thing. We have an amazing guest today. I'll introduce him in just a little bit, but I want to first give you some updates on the film project. I know some people were asking, "Hey, when can we see this film?" And well, I want to know that too. That's a great question because we haven't produced it yet. So we are in the process of getting this film funded at this point, and I'm going to show you our website here. We're raising money. You can go to our website. You can see the trailer for the film. You can see lots of information. You can see our board of advisors on there, who's kind of behind this thing and helping us tell the story. Got some amazing advisors. We're going to add another one here on this list here next week, I believe. So really excited about that. Um, you can also look at the folks who have endorsed our film, some great organizations, the International Critical Incident Stress Foundations, Concerns of Police Survivors, Blue Help, and many others. Nina, which is important for our conversation today. And so we're really thankful for that. We've had tons of you who have made contributions. You've gone to our website, you've gone to our Indiegogo page when we were live and you made a contribution. If you would like to do that, we encourage you to do that. If you believe in this project, you believe in what we're doing to tell this story, go to our website, click on the make a donation button, and go on our donation page, make a contribution toward our film so we can get this film produced. We can't do it without funding, and we can't do it without your help and without your contributions. And for all of those of you who made a contribution to our project, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And just a little sneak peek, we got a big announcement coming next week. I'm just going to throw it out there. Big announcement coming next week. Be sure to tune in next week on First Responder Friday for that announcement. Well, today we have an amazing guest. Ricardo Martinez is the host and creator of Within the Trenches, the podcast, and he is joining us from his studio today. I'm going to take him off mute here so he can join us. And so he's a former dispatcher. We were just talking about the various master's degrees he got at Full Sail University, and so he is an educated podcaster and broadcaster, and now the head of Within the Trenches Media. Yeah, full on media production company. And
Trying.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure you've seen him on his show here on Facebook and other places. He's also the founder of the hashtag I am 911, and that has kind of blown up, going around the world. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So, Ricardo, welcome to First Responder Friday.
Thank you very much, Conrad. It's good to be here, man. I've been waiting for it.
Yeah, it's fun. So I know you kind of made a cameo appearance on our live show we did for our marathon day of fundraising. That was
Yes.
exhausting, by the way.
Yeah, I
It was
bet.
like I spent all day right here. It was like, okay, this was a crazy idea, right? But we did raise some money, so we're grateful for that. So thank you
Mhm.
for showing up for that. But today I got you the whole hour,
Yeah.
and we're going to be sitting here talking about what you do. And so tell us a little bit about you. What do you do, and how'd you get to where you are today?
Well, I mean, currently, like you said, I'm running Within the Trenches Media. I'm the founder of it, the founder of the I Am 911 movement, and the creator and host of Within the Trenches podcast. Um, Everything that I'm doing right now, I mean, you name it. There's a bunch of different things. I also have Code 7 dispatch apparel. So if you look in back of me right there, I've got a screen printing press. I press my own shirts and all merchandise, and so I've got that piece. I've got the Code 7 podcast network. All of this under Within the Trenches Media. Um, I was a 911 dispatcher and call taker, dispatcher, and supervisor for 13 and a half years. And then after that time, I ended up moving off into to the private side, working for a company out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. But getting to all of that was definitely something else.
A journey. So, what got you into dispatching? What got you into that line of work?
Well, um, it's funny being on this side because I'm the
I
one
get to ask the
who's asking
questions, and
that.
you got to
Yeah,
answer. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. That's funny. Um, it's not that big. I just kind of fell into it. So, like a lot of people, actually, I fell into it. So I'm born and raised out of Southwest Michigan, and I ended up. I was 18, going on 19, I think it was. I ended up um, going to Florida to visit my family for a little while. There's a lot of stuff that was going on in Michigan. There weren't a lot of jobs, so I wanted to try something new. Get a fresh start, but go there to visit family just for those couple weeks and just try to get an idea of what I wanted to do. Um, those couple of weeks turned into about a month, and my mom asked if I thought I should get a job. And I said, yeah, probably." So, up until that point, all I had was retail management experience.
Hmm.
Um, so that's what I was looking for. I was looking all over the place in Florida. I was Polk County, and I could not find a management job.
Hmm.
Everything was at the bottom working up, and I knew my experience and everything, and I was willing to do it, but I was looking for a management position first, and just couldn't find anything. And my mom ended up saying, your cousin's husband knows the chief of police. Maybe they can, help you get in there. And I thought, well, I don't know anything about 911.
Hmm.
I know they take phone calls and stuff, but I don't know anything else. Up until that point, all I had was, Rescue 911 with Shatner, one of my favorite shows. So I thought, okay, why not? So I went, I applied, I ended up getting an interview, and after a couple months was when I ended up getting the job. Now,
Hmm.
I I didn't think I had done well. Well, I mean, in the beginning, I thought I did good with the interview, but then it took a couple months, and I thought, "Oh, man, I must have really messed up,"
You
because
don't hear from them, and you think, "Oh wow, they threw my resume out the window."
yes, yeah, exactly, like, yeah, "Nope, we don't want you, man." But, um one day my grandmother comes into the room. I was napping, and she comes into the room that I'm in, and she's freaking out, and she wakes me up, and she's telling me in Spanish, because she didn't really speak any English, but she's telling me in Spanish that the police are here, and then of course she goes, "What did you do?" And I said, "What?" Like, I didn't do anything. At least I don't think I did. And so she goes, "Well, you need to go see what's going on. You need to go and talk to them." And I said, "Okay." So I'm kind of freaking out myself, and I go out front, and it's the chief of police. And he says, "Hey, I just came by to see how you were doing, for one, and two, to see if you still wanted the job." And I was blown away. I remember standing there with Chief Bird, and I just thought, I I I actually got the job? And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, it's been so long, I didn't think that it was gonna go anywhere." And he says, "We just have a lengthy background process." And I thought, "Oh, okay." So, usually when you start a new job, it's the next week or something. Um, not in this case, because that's what I was thinking as well.
Mhm.
And I mentioned that to him, and he goes, "No, you start tonight." And I said, "Oh,
Wow.
Oh, okay." And I said, "What time?" And he goes, "You're gonna work our midnight shift. It's 10 p.m. to 6 a.m." And I said, "Okay." So he he left. I'm excited and nervous. I think I ended up taking a nap again because I was gonna be
I
working
got to
midnight
work all
shift.
night.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So then I end up going in that night, and I meet my trainer. He had to have been in his early to mid 70s, um, a seasoned dispatcher, and he was awesome. And but he shows me everything, right?
Mhm.
And I sit down and I'm observing him, and he takes a 911 call, and then after he's done, he turns around and looks at me and he goes, "Okay, you're next." What?
Wow. After observing one call?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
That was my
That was your training?
and
Wow.
I remember saying, something like, "You're joking, right?" And he just stone look in his face, and he's like, "No, I'm not. It's you're next. The only way you're gonna learn is by doing this."
Hmm.
And I said, "But there's nothing else, man. Like there's nothing else." And he goes, "There will be." So it was about a week or so later that I did take a 40-hour beginners, dispatcher's course. But that first night, man, that first call that I took, from what I remember, it wasn't anything. I think it was just like it was a hang up or something, but it wasn't anything. Or no, it was a misdial. That's what it was.
Mhm.
But yeah, that first night was something else. That was my intro into dispatch.
Wow. So how long did you do that?
From when I was in Florida, it was about 3.5, 4 years that I was there, that I was working. Um, it was a small police department. The city, people probably don't even know, but the city name is Frostproof. you
That was, it was on the news just recently. There was like
know what? I
some
think it was.
criminal case there that they were looking for these guys that had killed somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Frostproof, yeah, Frostproof in Polk County. That's where I started out. The police department is not there anymore. A little bit after I moved back home to Southwest Michigan, um, it ended up getting consolidated there with
Mhm.
the county. So it got swallowed up
Mhm.
and it's not there anymore. But I'll tell you what, man, whenever whenever I go back to visit family in that area, I always go to the little plot of land of
Mhm.
where the building used to be. I don't know
Mhm.
why, but I I always have to go. I just go and I'll just stand there and just kind of reflect, because
Mhm.
that's where it all began. That's where it
Mhm.
all started. That's where.
So in those early years when you were just, fresh out of high
Mhm.
school and barely in your I'm assuming barely in your 20s, what kind of calls did you get? Did you get some calls that were just like, ugh, that still stick with you today?
Yes, for sure. So that that time there, um, and I'd never dealt with anything like that before. I'm 19, going on to 20, and I'm dealing with different calls that are coming in, but because it was a small city and small police department, I think we only had like 12, maybe 12 sworn officers,
Hmm.
and that's including sergeant, lieutenant, and the chief. So it was pretty small. The call volume wasn't that big. There were not a lot of calls that I took that were, um, I would say, just very high emergencies. But the day that I ended up, going on my own was my last day of training, first day going on my own. Um, the chief is getting ready to leave, and he goes, "Are you sure you're gonna be able to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, man. I don't worry about it. I got you. We're fine. We're good." And I think he was more worried than I was, and he was making me a little nervous too.
Hmm.
But I told him, I said, "You're always listening to the radio. If anything, you'll hear something and you'll come over here, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, probably." And I said, "Okay, so you don't have anything to worry about." So he's getting ready to leave. And when he goes to leave, we hear a car screech up. Now, this police department, when you come up, you would open the door and walk into this little lobby area, and then right over is dispatch. Is
Hmm.
all of us right there. Just a little glass that you can reach under or over if you needed something. But that's all it was. We had one holding cell there. Um, so this car screeches up, door opens, and we hear a lady screaming. And I remember my ears and everything just perked up and all. And I'm standing there, the door whips open, and the lady runs in, and she's yelling, "I found him. I found him. I found him." And the chief kind of grabs her, by the arms, and is like, "What's going on? What's going on?" Now, it's a small city, so he knew her, like everybody knew each other.
Hmm.
And she goes, I found him. So this is the first call, the first call that I had that really sticks with me till today. And the thing was, though, is that the first one that I thought was going to be like this was going to be over the phone. It's face to face.
Wow.
We're right there.
Hmm.
And she says, what had happened was her and her husband were separated. They were trying to figure out whether they were going to continue their marriage or not. And she decided that day, yes, I want to continue our marriage. We've got kids. I want to continue this marriage. So she goes back to their home to tell him that that's what she wants to do. And she found that he had hung himself
Mm.
there at the house.
Mm.
So the chief goes out there as well as the officer who's on duty, and I'm left there
Mm.
with the person, with my caller,
Mm.
but face to face.
Wow.
We're right there. So what do? You know, you be human. You go
Mhm.
and you talk to the person. So I go into the lobby area with her, and you know, I ask her if there's anyone that she needs, that she wants me to call, and she wanted family. So I called her family. They came. They were with her for a little bit, and then they all left. And then it's just me there, and just letting it all sink in. And the chief and the officer comes back. The officer ends up having, he's got the letter. He's got the suicidal note.
Mm.
Now, I knew exactly what had happened, right? But for some reason, like I just, why? You know, how did this person get to that point? So I kept trying to kind of peek over at the note, and then the officer looks at me and he goes, "Do you want to read it?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I don't know why, man. This is like really hitting me. Yeah, let me read it." So I read it, and basically what it said was that he couldn't be without her or their kids together as a family, that he really wanted them to work out, that he loved her so much, and just really wish that it would have worked out. And I every time I think about that, and at that moment, like I can see myself back there, I remember thinking, man, if you would have just waited just a little bit longer,
Mm.
she wanted the same thing. And
Mm.
that sticks with me.
Hmm. Wow. That was kind of the start of your career in dispatch,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you've had hundreds or even thousands of other calls that stuck as well as that one did. How did that overall over the course of your years? You were what in it? What 13 years or so
Yeah, 13 and a
altogether?
half years. Yep.
13 and a half years.
Dispatching.
How overall? What was that impact on you just mentally? Yeah, I mean, what happened to you? What was going on in your brain over those years?
You know, um, a lot of it was so I'll say this. I was one of the dispatchers who um I would bury those calls,
Hmm.
you know, and I really didn't have someone to talk to about it. And also, you know, years back, and it's probably like that in some places as well. You know, if you're reaching out for help, I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't heard of, but not a lot of people did because nobody wanted to look weak,
Hmm.
which in time, I myself learned that's not the way to think about it. You know, you're more courageous for asking for help. Um, because and it's a hard thing to do. But for me, I found it therapeutic. Throughout the years, I found it therapeutic to talk about it, to write it down, and just get it out there. Um, that's how it ended up working for me. I found out the hard way because I had them buried, you know, in the beginning. But once I started talking about it and talking about it and talking about it, it became easier because that was the first step, was talking about it. You know, kind of, you know, confronting your demons, so to speak. Demons being those calls that haunt us sometimes, but to be able to talk to them, or talk about them rather, you can manage whatever ends up coming from that. And honestly, there are still some times where there'll be, you know, a trigger here or there on something, but it's also something that I've talked about before, and I'm able to, um, you know, take it from there. So over those years, and also going back to school and doing a bunch of different projects, that include 911 and trying to turn it into a public education type thing,
Mm,
so that more people understand. If I'm calling 911 and they're putting me on hold, there's got to be a reason.
mm,
There's a reason. And that's what I wanted to put out there to people, because I would always get that question: what's your worst call? What's your best call? What's this and that? And I just, you know, realized that people have no idea. So it was an opportunity for me now, 10 years ago, to start doing that, to turn it into public education.
mhm. What I mean, in those early years, who did you talk to? You said you just started sharing. Who did you talk to? Other fellow workers, or who was that audience for you?
Um, so it was more, friends and family in the beginning. And it was mostly because, so, in every profession, you have to have some sort of dark sense of humor, right? Because if not, you're going to spend more time crying than you are laughing,
Hmm.
and you're going to burn out. So, family or friends would ask, how's everything going, in dispatch, and I would say, it's been all right. It's been kind of slow. And then they would say, oh, well, I mean, doesn't that mean that everything is okay in the world? Like, you don't want people to be hurt, right? I'm like, no, no, hell no. I don't want people to be hurt, but it's my job to help those people if they're in trouble. So I want to help people. That's why I say it's been slow. Like, there's nothing going on. I want to be helping people and sending help out there, or making sure that everyone who's out in the field ends up, going home safe. So it was a lot of that, talking to people about it. And again, that curiosity was there. So one, I was going to take the opportunity to educate, and two, it was going to help me because it was
Hmm.
therapeutic for me to talk about it.
Hmm. Did you ever? And I don't know the answer to this. Did you ever like go seek professional help and see a counselor or anything like that?
There was actually one time that I got a chance to speak to a counselor, and it was myself and actually two other people. We had a sergeant um, that had passed away. And well, actually, there was, now I think about it, there was two. So the sergeant that passed away, we had someone come in who actually came from public safety. He was a dispatcher and call taker as well, as supervisor. And it was a lot easy. Like, he knew what we were dealing with, where we come from. But when a different incident happened and we spoke to this counselor, I'm sure that he's awesome at his job, but it was different because he doesn't come from public safety. So when we ended up mentioning what was going on, the first thing that he came back with was, "Well, how does that make you feel?" And we thought, "Okay, we'll talk to you later."
Yeah.
So it was different. So that was really the only time with a counselor. For me, I just kept doing what I was doing in writing about it, talking about it, sharing stories. That power of storytelling, it really does a lot.
Mhm. Mhm. What would you say? I mean, over the years, it's getting a little bit better some places, not everywhere, but oftentimes dispatchers are viewed as just as secretaries or just that kind of thing. What would you say? What would you say to the general public to help them understand what a dispatcher's job really involves?
Mhm. So, I've had a few people ask me, what is it like? Or what is it, give me a scenario. So let me give you a scenario. This might work out with what you're saying. So, and this happened once to me, and I'm sure it's happened to a bunch of people in different ways. But think about being on the phone, you're call taking, and you've got these three calls that come in, one right after the other. The first one, you've got a personal injury accident. You've got the information, fire and EMS, and everyone is headed out there. The next call comes in, and it's a domestic, husband and wife. It's verbal at the moment, but it's also in progress. You've got people heading out there, but it's so busy Another call that's coming in that's been ringing, you need to check it. You know that they're okay. They're separated. The first call has help going out to it. So you pick up this third call. You put the ones on hold, pick up the third call. Now you're on a medical. You're on a medical with CPR. So you've got these three that you're doing. You're giving instructions. Now it's at a point they're doing pumps and breaths over and over and over and over. And that's what they're doing as EMS is going out there. So for just a second, you can put them on hold and check on that domestic. Well, now with that domestic, there's a weapon involved.
Hmm.
So which one do you stay with? Who do you go back to?
Hmm.
You stay with the one that has the weapon. You've got officers that are headed out there, but you got to keep going with what's going on in progress, because the CPR call, they're doing textbook CPR. EMS is already almost there, and you got to stick on that one. So I've given that scenario to people, and I've said, which one do you stay with? And they say, I don't know. Well, it's in that split second that you have to think, you have to triage on who you're going to stay with. Now, I don't know any administrative assistants who have to do that. And this is no disrespect or anything. I know their jobs are hard as well, but in comparison, when you're thinking about, reclassification and how the OMB has everything set up, and you can ask anybody. That's why I give that scenario, because that alone shows you right there. The job is different, very, very intense.
Yeah, I know a lot of people in the 911 dispatch community were really, excited that the state of California is about to sign legislation to make that change, change from a secretary or whatever to a first responder. And I think that's important. I guess. Do you know how many states have ratified something like that?
There are several. Indiana's in there. Texas, I believe, was the first. I think Idaho is in there as well. Or, California's coming on. There's several. I don't have an exact number, but yeah, there's a lot of them, and they're going statewide right now until hopefully the 911 Saves Act gets passed. But
right. So
state
tell
by
me a little bit
state,
about what
West
got
Virginia too.
what motivated you to. I mean, where did the hashtag come from? I'm going to put it up on the screen so people
Mhm.
can see it. So where did that movement start? How did that start? How did that where did it come from?
So this all goes into the entire reclassification issue. So this is back in August of 2016. There were two big organizations that were fighting for all 911 dispatchers to be able to get this classification change from clerical to protective. Now, during that time, I had been watching both sides on social media, and I noticed that there wasn't a lot of awareness, I guess. Like they were both doing their things and doing it well, but I wanted to kind of give it a shock, so to speak. I wanted to jumpstart it, and but I wanted to do it, almost dispatch style, kind of in your face. I wanted people to understand the difference between the clerical workers and the clerical class and the protective class and protective services. The and so I wanted to put it out there um in just little stories, little mini stories. Again, that power of storytelling can go far.
Hmm.
And I started it out, and it was August 24th, 2016. And I had posted something while I'm sitting at my in-laws dinner table. I had designed it up really quick, and it was just a meme with a full moon, because we all know when the full moon hits, there's a lot of stuff that happens.
Yep.
But on it, I put some wording on there, and it said, "I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler." And then underneath, I hashtagged it, "I am 911." And I posted it to the podcast page, and I had put out there to everyone why I was doing it, and that I wanted others to do the same thing. just to raise awareness by sharing just a little glimpse into one of our stories,
Hmm.
something that has stuck with us. Um, a lot of them ended up being ones that were haunting.
Hmm.
And from the time that I had posted it, there was about 10 minutes in between of what I'm going to tell you here. I had left for my in laws to my mom's house to go and visit her. And my phone just started blowing up
Hmm.
and messages were coming in. And it was enough to where um, the notifications weren't coming in anymore because they were just stacking, 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 stacking. And I remember my son saying, "What did you do?" And I said, "I think I struck a chord." And people were sharing stories like crazy. And what started out as a reclassification issue quickly turned into peer support
Hmm.
because a lot of the messages that were coming in along with the stories were dispatchers and call takers saying, "Thank you for doing this. I've been holding on to," because all the stories are anonymous. And they said, "I've been holding on to this for so long. I have an outlet to put that out there." So we were taking stories, taking them and putting them out there. And that's how it all started. But it quickly turned into peer support and it exploded. And even today in 2020, we're sharing stories all the time. We still have stories in the inbox from September of 2016 because that's how many came in.
Wow. Wow. And this was a part of the podcast, the show that you were already doing.
Right. Yeah. So I started within the trenches back in I think it was 2012, going right into 2013. The original concept, however, started 10 years ago. This year, this is 10 years from the original concept. It was a college project. It was for my bachelor's of graphic design, and we had to do a digital storytelling project, and we had to add music, a story, and either still pictures or animation. I went with still pictures. I'd been playing around with the idea already um, about sharing dispatch stories, and that's what I went with. I got two of my coworkers, and they shared their stories, how they got into dispatching, their worst call, and then their best call, and why they do what they do. And that is where it all started. Was 10 years ago, but the podcast itself is about 7 years old. And I've been doing that, sharing stories. There's about 345 episodes out there now, but I had been doing all of this, and then in 2016, founded the I Am 911 movement. And the reason I also had put it that way as well, and the wording, as I had mentioned in the meme, is because it's like another form of communication. I'm
Hmm.
never going to meet the people that I spoke to. It's very rare that I would, but it's it's almost like if they were to see it, it's me reaching out to them saying, "I was the one who took that call and I was there with you the entire time. We
Hmm.
were there together. You weren't alone."
Hmm. Wow. That in your show, your podcast, you talk to other dispatchers, and I know you have have several varieties of that podcast. Kind of talk through that and what you guys talk about. Is it therapeutic not only for you but for those who come on the show?
Yeah, it is. It has been very therapeutic. A lot of people who have been on I call it the flagship show, within the trenches, the original, um,
Hmm.
that the original out of the network that I have now. A lot of people have come on and we're basically doing it like this. I tell them, or I ask them how they got into it, and talk about some of their calls. Some of them have done presentations, or they're doing public education or other things, and we talk about that as well. But every single episode is about them. It's about their story, because they're the most vital piece of public safety. They're the stories that people were not hearing about,
Hmm.
and I wanted to put that out there, and for those to understand that 911 dispatchers and call takers aren't drones. They're not just answering the phone. There is so much more to it. That even though they sound focused and calm, cool, and collected in the back of their minds, and because this is how I was as well, I'm freaking out right there with you.
Hmm.
I am, we're empaths. I'm put myself in your shoes to an extent so I can understand also what is going on to better respond to not only you on the phone, but for everyone in the room and those who are going out to that emergency.
Hmm.
So that's where all of that, stems from. Um, the rest, all the spawns from from within the trenches. Um, with I Am 911 movement, all of these stories that had come out, what I wanted to do was to be able to share them to a bigger audience through the podcast. So I created, it's called Imagine Listening, and it started in 2017 at a conference in Indiana, and it was a live audience episode. It's an hour long. There's two parts. The first 30 minutes is Imagine Listening. The tagline is Your Worst Day is Our Every Day. And I give dispatchers and call takers the chance to share their personal I Am 911 stories. They can say it out loud, or they can write it down, and I'll read it for them. And this is a recorded episode.
Hmm.
And I can't describe how powerful it is to be in there. I mean, there are people who are just letting go, sharing these stories. There's others that are crying. And but it's awesome because we're there healing and gaining closure together, supporting each other. And then the last 30 minutes is open mic, where we share all of the funny and hilarious that it can be 911. So we start out emotionally intense,
Hmm.
and then we jump into something lighthearted and funny so that we can all laugh together and again heal from it. I mean, laughing is good medicine.
Yeah. Wow. So, just for our audience sake, what's one of the funny stories that sticks with you?
You know, there are many. I remember um I remember one where I actually got a letter from from one of the troopers who went out on this one specific call. Gave it to my director, and the director sent it to me and just said, "Good job." And I said, "What? Good job for what? What did I do?" And at first, I thought she was joking. I was like, "What? Are you playing around with me?" And she goes, "No, no, no, no. Very good job. Check this out." And it was, uh, it was a letter that was sent to her from the trooper that went out there. But this was a night shift. I worked midnight shift all the time, except for a small stint. Um, I was on mornings, but all of it was midnight shift. And I had a gentleman call in who was intoxicated, very intoxicated. And I remember he kept yelling at me and calling me dispatcher. And he, he, he just kept saying, "Dispatcher, you need to get an officer out here and give me a breathalyzer test." And I said, "What?" And okay, well, why? And he goes, I just I just need him to come over here and do that. And I said, "Sir, what okay, what is going on?" I had already gotten his, pertinent information, and I was at the very least going to send somebody out there to check his welfare because I'm
Hmm.
thinking, "What is going on?" And he ends up telling me that he's at this one of the bars there in the county, which in the county, it's at the very southern end of the county. And I'm looking at his address, and he's at the very northern part of the county. And I thought, did he drive himself home? So I hadn't gotten to that question yet because I'm waiting to hear what the issue is. So he's telling me that he was at this bar and he had spent a lot of money on alcohol there, and they kicked him out because he was very intoxicated. And I said, "Okay, well, so what does the breathalyzer thing have to do with any of that?" He goes, "I just want to make a point. I just want to prove to the bar that I wasn't as drunk as they thought I was." And I said, "Sir, I don't believe an officer's going to go out there. I can have someone call you." So he ends up calling 4 or 5 times. And at this point, it's turning into abuse of 911.
Hmm.
And a trooper had called already and said he wasn't going to go out there. So the guy calls again. He's like, "Dispatcher." And for whatever reason, I was the one who got it every time. I had a partner with me on phones, but I just happened to be the one to pick it up. So it's like the dispatch gods were like, "You're going to deal with this one. He's going to be yours." Um, so he calls one last time. And so I put him on hold and I get the trooper on the radio on a secondary channel, and I said, "Dude, this guy is on again." And he goes, "All right." He goes, "We'll be en route over there to pick him up for something." for abuse of 911. And I was like, all right, I'll let him know that you're headed over there. So I get back on the phone with the guy and he goes, dispatcher, because I've been on hold. I was like, I'm sorry, sir. I apologize. I was talking to the trooper and, is he going to do his job? Is he going to do his job, dispatcher, like you? And I said, you know what, sir? You're right. I apologize. I'm here to help. An officer is going to go out there and meet with you and, and, and talk to you. And he goes, it's about time. And you know what? Let him know I don't mess around. And I said, oh, okay. So he slams the phone down. I get on the radio with the trooper and I tell him that. And he just kind of chuckles and he's like, all right, I'll keep that in mind. And they get out there. It's not even 5 minutes that they've checked out there and they key up on the radio and say, we got one in custody. Now, when before he slammed the phone on me, though, I did ask him, I said, so you were at a bar at the most southern part of the county and you live in the northern part. Did you drive home by yourself? And then there was silence. And he goes, that's not the point here. The point is that I got kicked out and I spent a lot of money and I want to prove something. And I said, okay. So for all of that, I ended up getting a good letter from the trooper saying that he listened to the tape and that I held it together really well, that he would not have been able to do the same.
Wow. Well, I know in talking with dispatchers from around the country, there's so many stories, like that, and then there's so many stories of just really heartbreak and
Mhm.
things that really affect you guys as dispatchers and as call takers. Um, what do you think is important for a dispatch agency to do in order to take care of their people properly?
It definitely starts at the top. I say it all the time. It starts at the top, and it makes us feel more comfortable as well when those at the top are really involved to a point, of course, but involved where they're really kind of paying attention to some of the things that are going on. I mean, there's a lot of civil unrest and everything that's going on, and you know the amount of calls that are probably coming in and the types of incidents, if those at the top are really paying attention to that, they're able to figure out some way to um, continue that mental health and wellness. That is one of the biggest things. When I do these the Imagine Listening sessions, they're very therapeutic, and people have told me that they feel so much better after they leave from there. And there have been a few times where I I know some of the directors are in there, and right before we leave, I will stop everyone and say, for those of you who are directors in here, you see that your people have been hurting, like they've been holding this stuff in. What is the next step? Like, what are you going to do from here now that you've seen this to
Mm,
continue that growth, that the mental health and wellness, so that we can nurture that and continue going from there. I mean, training, you know, is amazing. Peer support. There are a lot of organizations out there doing, peer support sessions, creating teams. You were talking about Nina earlier. They've got a wellness group, and their co-chairs are actually going to be doing a session on peer support and such next week at the Dare to Be Great 2 conference. But things like that, that can continue to nurture the dispatchers and call takers, and also to let them know that it's okay not to be okay, that it's okay to talk about this, that
mm,
we're trying to, as I seen you put it, and a lot of others, smash that stigma. you
mhm.
know um I wish I had a lot of this when I was in dispatch, but I feel like I went through what I went through to also grow, as a person, and for everything that I'm doing now.
Mhm. What would you say to that dispatcher who's kind of in excuse me, in the trenches, and their supervisors, their higher ups are just oblivious to this, or don't, or even maybe uh, against any kind of, or just don't care, just don't care for them. What should they do? What's the first step?
A lot of research, research online. Go to different pages on social media and stuff, um, because there's a lot of resources out there. There are many resources out there, way more than there was when when I was starting out dispatching. But now, from the time that the whole reclassification issue started, the IM91 movement, all of this started. So much more is available, and there are even more people who are ready and willing to talk to you about it than there were before, because before it was just, all right, well, continue to move on. And in some cases, when you're taking phone calls, and that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. But when you get that moment, step back, reflect, and work through it, because we need you. We need all of you to be here. So for that one person who might be out there who's dealing with supervisors or directors or whichever who just don't want to do that at all, there are a lot of us out here, and we see you and we hear you, and we will help you in any way possible because we've also been there.
Hmm. So I know you're not, active in, as a call taker, as a dispatcher now, but you're connected to all these folks. What's the future of 911 in technology and in the world? What's that future look like?
Man, it's it's it is very it continues to grow every day. The technology aspect of it is blowing up. You look all over the place and there's new technology for 911, which is amazing. It is really good. There's a lot more than there was before,
I mean,
and
just
it's stuff that's
GPS
needed.
itself is a huge asset. I know. Just
Right.
I mean to interrupt, but just a few months ago, my wife and I were in Florida, and we witnessed an accident on the interstate, and there was a motorcycle accident. That guy, bodies flying right in front of us, and my wife, I jumped out of the car to help, and my wife called 911, and with the call taker's help, they figured out where they were. The call taker said, "Well, I can get your coordinates from your cell phone." So that technology is really amazing. That wasn't available, just a few short years ago.
Right. Yeah. See, and that oh, so good, because when I was in dispatch, I mean, we had coordinates as well, but they weren't that great, man. They they were, it would show, it would pinpoint at a spot, but then there was like almost a 12-mile radius of where
Mm-hmm.
you could be.
Yep.
So unless people are being, very, self-aware of what's, not only what's going on, but also everything around you, landmarks, anything, it would be hard to find somebody. But
Mm-hmm.
now, definitely better. Um, with bringing in all this new technology and stuff, video to 911, pictures, all this other stuff, though, one of the things to really think about as well, and this was something that I had put out to, the company that I was working for before I went on my own, because we were pushing out text to 911, and one of the big things was, already talking about video and pictures, especially pictures. And I would say, we really need to talk to the directors and those who are going to be taking these to figure out how they want to receive it. Because now it's not just hearing everything
Mm-hmm.
and piecing it in your minds. I mean, my imagination was probably 10 times worse than what was actually going on there on the scene,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm trying to piece everything. I've got screams, I've got all this other stuff going on. I have to piece it together so that those who are going out to the road, from the road to, the call, they know what they're getting into. But now you're going to be watching it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's even more of the mental health and wellness aspect that we got to think about.
That's why it's so important for leaders to now begin really working to ramp up their training and teaching on this subject. And I know you're doing some of that just with your conferences. You kind of talk us through that. What are you doing? Where did that start, and what's going on with the upcoming conference next week?
So the conference is called Dare to Be Great, and it it was this past April, the last week of April, that was the first conference, and what it came from was what we're all dealing with: the pandemic, COVID-19. You know, all of these different um, training sessions, conferences, everything was either getting postponed or canceled, and then eventually just completely canceled. And as I said before, you know, training, training sessions, all types of things like that, they're needed. And I wanted to try to do something um, to bring that, and also to make it free for those to attend, and that anybody could attend, not just those who are in public safety, but anyone, because a lot of people in you know, that are dispatchers and call takers, their family, they don't understand what it is that they do. So it's open to everyone, where you can have your family also register and sit in on a couple sessions to learn about 911 and what dispatchers and call takers go through, what they're learning, and really get an understanding about what it is that they're going through. Um, Especially some of those that talk about PTSD, some of the, you know, calls that people have taken where they were at a very low and ended up coming back and at a very high, you know, because they're resilient like that. Also, those who are looking into getting into public safety, into dispatching, they can register as well. So in about 2.5 weeks, my my crew and I, we put together this conference, and for the first one, I think it's just under 7,000 attendees that
Wow,
ended up, and that
that's
was
crazy.
worldwide as well. Yes, that was very crazy for the first one. And now when it first started out, when it was getting to um, conference time for it to go live, there was only about, you know, a thousand, 1,500, I think is actually what it was. And then it rolled over to 2,000 because a lot of people were coming in at the last second. But from that time in April to even today, people have been registering. That's how it's
Mm.
gotten that high. Um, so with this one, the second one, this is the fall Dare to Be Great Fall Virtual Conference. There are now even more speakers, still free registration for everyone. There's also sponsors, and you're able to sign up, whether it be now, during next week, Tuesday through Friday, or way after. They're going to be available, and you're going to be able to register here. You can, you know, like I said, registers for free. You've got all the information on there. There's about 37 sessions.
Wow.
This is towards frontline dispatchers, call
Mm.
takers, but also coming from the technology side in training and mental health and wellness. So it's going to be a big thing, and I'm excited for it. It's going to be next week. I'm
That's
just a
pretty
few days
awesome. Where can
away.
people go to register? Where is it? Withinthetrenches.net? Is
Yes,
that the
within the
website?
trenches.net slash conference. If you go
Okay.
there, all the information will be there. Keynote speakers, sponsors, agenda, everything is on there, as well as, of course, the registration. So
Right.
it's all there.
Awesome. I'm going to put that up on the screen there so people can go there to register. So I know
Excellent.
for the first one, I was able to jump in on a few sessions, and just the things I heard was pretty amazing. I remember there was one session talking about 9/11
Mhm.
and the things that went on there, and also actually the one that was really heard was about the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
Some of the call takers there for that, and some of the sounds that they heard, in that call. So it was pretty gripping. And
Yeah, that is a that's a session put on by Tony Harrison of the Public Safety Group. He does an excellent job. That audio in the beginning, when you hear that explosion, that is chilling.
mhm. Yeah. So who are some of the other speakers that people can expect next week?
Yeah, so we've got our main keynote speakers. It's going to kick it off with Karima Holmes. She's the director out of DC 911, the Offices of Unified Communications. Excellent, excellent speaker. The next one, all of them are amazing speakers. Um, we've got Tyrell Morris, who is out of New Orleans. he is going to be on as well. He'll be on day 2, and then excuse me, day 3 will end up being Jameson Peavy House. And so those are the 3 main speakers, and it's going to be amazing. Like I said, I'm excited, and the speakers are ready to go. And if you go into the platform where after you register and you go into that platform, there are already people who are putting up messages saying hello from, wherever they're saying hello from. So I think that's one of the best things, is that even though this is virtual and there are tons of people in the chat area, the interaction is all real time. And a
Mm,
lot of people have said, even though there's a lot of us here, I felt like the speaker was talking just to me.
mhm,
And but then they're also all talking to each other, asking questions, networking, and that's what it's all about. So
mhm.
it's been good.
And so here's the question that I have: how do you do it for free?
Well, I pay for that part. I pay for that part of it. But I have it going through patrons.
Mhm,
So I've got a service called Patreon, and I have patrons who assist with that. So even though I pay for it, their support in that sense is what ends up going towards it, to pay for the platform. Um, and there's sponsors that come on. The first one, there were no sponsors at all. It was just me putting it on. So the sponsors now, it's really a lot, also for their exposure and their support to 911 dispatchers and call takers, to um, show them the new technology and everything that's coming out, but also for those who are trainers, and those for mental health and wellness, that they're there for them too. So they've got all of this education that's coming, and that's people are able to register for free. So it all works out.
that's pretty amazing. I think that just shows to your passion and your heart for helping first responders, helping dispatchers and call takers to be healthy. And I think that speaks volumes. And I've in the course of working on this documentary and doing the research, I've really come to the realization that when I pick up the phone and call 911, I really hope and pray that call taker is healthy.
Mhm.
And that's what makes better communities, what makes safer communities. And then when those responders come to my emergency, I hope they're healthy as well. And that's really, I think, our goal with this movie project is to move that needle toward better health for all of our first responders. And I think that with all of us working together like this, I think we can accomplish that. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of effort,
Right.
and it's going to take some people to it's going to take some people to shut up. you know,
Right. Yeah.
there's more than one person that I've had to mute from our site because they're and you can tell they're responding and reacting from their own personal pain.
Mm.
And they're saying negative things. Oh, they don't if they're if they're having PTSD, they don't need to be in that job. Things like that. And I'm like, yeah, you're suffering. It's pretty evident.
Right.
And so, uh, but there's so many more voices out there like yours who are voices of hope and help and I'm that gives me hope. It gives me hope for all of our first responders, including dispatchers and call takers and so I want to say, just for me as a civilian, thank you for what you're doing and
Thank you. I
for the
appreciate
services that you're offering and for the work that you're doing uh, each and every day. So tell me a little bit about you went from a full time job getting a paycheck to now you're on your own. How's that process been?
that. Well, you can't see them that much, but I usually have like big bags under my eyes, and it's mostly only because,
I sent the
um,
makeup guy today to help you out. No.
oh, okay. Well, that's who was at the door, and I didn't open it. Um, yeah, it's been pretty crazy, but it's been fun. So when I left dispatch, and it was the hardest thing for me to do. I mean, it took me a little bit before I said, "Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do this," because I loved the job. I still do, and I miss it, man. I do miss it. But I knew that by leaving, I was going to be able to do, hopefully, and at the time this is what I was thinking, hopefully I would be able to continue doing more and raising awareness to what 911 dispatchers go through on a daily basis when they're taking phone calls, and continue doing the podcast. Excuse me, because the company that I was working for, that's how they found me.
Hmm.
They found me through the podcast,
Wow.
and they ended up plucking me out of dispatch because I have the technical background as well as the 911 background, and this is a 911 solutions company here in Indiana, and so I was going to be able to help them from a dispatcher's perspective, and
Hmm.
on 911, and to help them with a lot of different things that they were doing. So I came in as a trainer, and then ended up moving up and doing marketing because they didn't know I could do all the stuff that I was able to do. So I ended up moving up. Now, they had been supporting me all that time with the podcast. So I would go to a conference, I would do work stuff, but on the side, I was also doing podcast stuff at the same conference, sharing stories and getting it out there. And then, this past, I think it was May going into June, um, I've been talking to the vice president of the company, and he goes, I wanted to talk to you about your conference. And I thought, oh, am I in trouble? Should I not have done that or what? And he was really impressed with what I had been doing and stuff. And so I ended up telling him
Lost your
that,
video there.
yeah, that's interesting. I've
Tricky.
got my camera on, everything is on.
Huh.
So, well, I mean,
I can
you can
still
still
hear you.
hear me, right?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
All right.
Ricardo
Well,
is with us, really.
yeah, let me see. Let me turn this off and then turn it back on because the camera's on. There it
Oh,
is.
there you are. There you
All
are.
right,
There you
I'm
are.
back.
Okay.
Not sure what happened, but so they were impressed with a lot of that stuff, but they were also saying, we want to try to figure something out where, maybe we can be, a sponsor of yours and you can just go off and do your own thing. And so there was a lot of negotiation with them and another sponsor and such. And I decided it was time.
Mm,
It's time to go and do it. And July 24th um, was my last day, which is crazy because July 23rd was my first day
hmm,
with the company. And that day I did a live broadcast, and that was basically my last day. But on paper it was the 24th.
hmm,
But it was just fitting that I started on that day and I ended on that day as well.
hmm.
And since then, it's been crazy busy.
Crazy.
But crazy busy is good.
Yeah.
It's been
Well,
a lot of different
congratulations
things.
on that. And I know it's always. I remember when I left my full time job to do what I'm doing now, and it's a scary step,
Yes.
but it's also exciting. It's also and like the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want to do, and then it all kind of comes back on you, right?
Yeah.
And that's the good part and the bad part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Double-edged
So
sword. Yep.
yeah, well, it's been so much fun talking to you, and I know we could talk for probably another hour or two, but we'll have to wrap it up here.
Sounds good. Thank you.
What's the last word? I'll give you the last word. What should people be thinking about when it comes to 911 dispatch?
Just remember that when you're making that 911 call, you're talking to another human, and that they are there for you with everything that you need. And, they are the most vital piece of public safety. I am proud of each and every one of them, and happy that I've been able to play even the small part in everything that is going on with 911 dispatchers, call takers, and public safety. It's been an amazing experience, and they rock. They're awesome.
Awesome. You've been watching First Responder Friday. We've been talking with Ricardo, who's doing amazing work, and he's the head of Within the Trenches Media. And Ricardo, thank you for coming on the show today. Stick around
Thank you.
after we sign off here, and we'll wrap up offline.
Hmm.
Like I said, you've been watching First Responder Friday. My name is Conrad Weaver. A little heads up to what's coming up next week. We have a very special guest coming, Matthew Damjancic is going to be here. He has an amazing story. He served in the Metro DC area in law enforcement and was a SWAT officer and a trainer and instructor. And today he's a wellness coordinator and he helps people get better who are in law enforcement. And he's going to be with us next week on First Responder Friday. So be sure to tune in and join us there. So, again, my name is Conrad Weaver. You've been watching First Responder Friday. Thanks for joining us. And please share, like, and all that fun stuff on all the social sites. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.